This was the schoolhouse that the people in this community, the children went to, and it was built in around 1925. We have a list of all the teachers that were here, and as far back as we could go was 1925. And then it closed in 1966 because all the children in there put on a bus and went to Rainy River to school. And this building was closed, and then eventually it just sat here, and eventually this door got all rotten, and they put up a board that people could break in, and they came in and they started to break windows, and they started to take books and desks, and they broke the teacher's desk, and they broke the teacher's chair. And one day, one of the ladies named Margaret and myself decided that maybe we should do something about this school. So we got the community people all together for coffee, because everybody loves to get together for coffee in the small communities. And we decided to fix it all up. So we put new doors, and we fixed up the windows, and we painted, and we made it all look. These desks here that have the runners on them, that are all hooked together, those were the original desks. The desks like you are sitting in and you are sitting in were desks that people gave us. They were at their houses, and they had got them from other schools, and they gave us those desks. We have books. Some of the original books are back there in the little library, and some of them were given to us too. And then these are the original blackboards. There are 3 bullet holes in those blackboards. 3 bullet holes. And the children, when I bring children out here and teach them as pioneers, we dress up as pioneers, and I teach them for a day, and they love to think that maybe somebody shot at the teacher. But that isn't the way it was. There's a bullet hole here, and there's one there, and there's one on that board. But once the school closed, the people that came around here and were hunters weren't really careful about the school, so some of the stray bullets from the hunting came through the school, and they hit the blackboards. And those blackboards are the original slate boards. That was the original alphabet. But when we came in here, everything was a big mess, and we could only find 20 letters instead of 26. And then we were given these maps. We were given the Union Jack, because that's what the flag was at that time. It wasn't the one with the maple leaf. We have Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, and we have Queen Elizabeth's father up here, King Charles, and we had another picture of Queen Elizabeth. And we used to sing, we didn't sing "O Canada" when the school was closed. We sang "God Save the Queen." Back there is where they got their drinks of water. Cold well water was put into those canteens. And this was original from the school. This was given to us from another school that had closed, and somebody had kept some of the things in their house, and they gave them to us here. And they washed their hands in these old enamel basins, and they had a bar of soap, and they dried their hands on a towel. No more automatic hand blowing machines or paper towels. It was all towels. They went to the bathroom outside, and when I started teaching children here for a Pioneer Day, they all told me they were not going to go to the bathroom all day long because they didn't want to go to the outdoor 50. But when they found out they could actually go out, go for a walk, and get away from the work for a while, they all wanted to try it. So it worked out just fine. You'll see that on some of the desks, if you walk around, you'll see that there are initials carved in the wood. All the boys carried a pocket knife. You wouldn't dare carry a pocket knife to school now, would you? Because it would be considered a weapon.
Yeah.
But they all had them. They whittled, and they all carried, we call them jackknives. And they all had a jackknife in their pocket. And sometimes when the teacher wasn't looking, they used the jackknife to carve their initials in the desks. And so we have some of these people. MKK lives in this community yet, and DK lives in this community. They're all grown up and grandparents now, but they have their initials on the desks. So it's quite fun to go around and see things that are written on them. So there was no photocopier, so everything was done from the board. You had your notebooks and you copied everything off the board. And at the recess, the teacher did not go out and worry about whether you were getting hurt. You just had to play on your own because the teacher had to erase everything that was on the boards and put more work on for the next block of time. So that's how you worked in here. So there were 2 cloakrooms. There are 2 rooms out here that for you to hang your coats. We call them cloak, not coat. And this was the boys right here because the teacher didn't trust the boys. The children love that story when I tell them. I say the boys' cloakroom had to be closest to the teachers so the teacher could keep an eye on the boys because they were always playing tricks on the girls. The girls had their cloakroom on the other side because the teacher didn't worry about them so much because there were 8 grades in here. They started from grade 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4 and we moved over to 5 and 6 and then the big kids sat over here grade 7 and 8. So we had 8 grades in here. So some of the big boys had lots of little ideas how to tease, so the teachers had a close eye on them. There was a big stove here. You can see on the floor the pattern of the pad that the stove sat on. It had to sit on an insulated pad so that it wouldn't burn the wood floor. And there was a big barrel stove in here, and it was hooked up with pipes up there. And it was very warm at the back of the classroom on cold days and sometimes very cold at the front. So sometimes they had to gather around the stove and they burned wood. We don't have that stove anymore. We just put this one in as decoration and we didn't hook it up because we don't want anybody to break into the school and light a fire and burn the place down. So it's just there for decoration. This was the color of it before we came in. It was this yucky pink color, and we didn't get that painted because we needed some work done on the chimney. And by the time we got the chimney painted or fixed, we had quit painting, so it ended up staying pink. And the rest of it we changed to blue. And there was electricity in here at one time. For 5 years they had electricity. Up until 1960 there was no electricity. The only light they had was the natural light from the windows. And on a dark day, it was pretty dark in here on a dull day. And in the winter, most of the kids walked, so in the real cold days, they didn't come. In the fall, the boys usually didn't come because they were either busy with their father's haying or fishing, because fishing was an industry here in this community, and they might be out with their father's lifting nets. And in the spring, they probably didn't come to school because they had to do the same thing. So oftentimes, some of the boys only came for the winter months to school, and maybe some of the girls. So there were a lot of kids that stayed home because it was either too cold or whatever, and they had to walk. The teacher stayed usually with somebody in the community. They didn't, most of the time, did not stay in the teacherage. There's a little house up behind here that was built for the teacher. But a lot of the time the teacher stayed with the family and walked to school every morning to get to spend the day with the children. Do you know what these are for, these holes? Those are for ink bottles. And for a long time that's what they used. They had a little bottle they put in there and they put ink in the bottle, and then they had a special pen that they dipped into the ink. And this is a special... This is the pen. This is called a nib pen, and it kind of soaked up a little bit of the ink, and you could only write for maybe a sentence or two, and then you had to dip it again. And the boys, years ago, the girls all had long hair, and they usually had it in braids, and they would have it braided and hanging down in really long hair. And if the boys could get one of those braids and dip it into the inkwell, then that was a big joke. And then the girl went around with blue hair. And she really wasn't all that impressed. But anyway, that was some of the little jokes that they played on each other. They had